And I want to welcome you to our third Kimball Talk in a series. We have two additional Kimball Talks in August and September that we're putting the final touches on the arrangements, and so we'll invite you to those, and they'll be notified through email and through social media. It is my pleasure tonight to introduce Shelby Schaefer. She's KDR's, hang on one second, she's KDR's Associate Director of Health and Wellness. We're fortunate to have been able to bring Shelby onto our team at the National Fraternity to lead up the health and wellness aspects of the Brothers Keeper program, which is our overall brother education paradigm based on three pillars: health and wellness, executive skills, and leadership development. In her new role, Shelby has been our point person in gathering information to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic and has put together a program for tonight on how your alumni organizations and your chapters with official or unofficial houses should prepare to return to campus in the fall. In addition to this program and other educational resources through which the National Fraternity is providing guidance, we will also be providing all rostered undergraduate brothers a KDR mask upon return to campus and initial signage for the chapters to designate sitting areas in their facilities. As Lauren said, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat box and she will ask them to Shelby at an opportune moment. And with that, I'm going to turn the program over to Shelby.
All right, how y'all doing tonight? Hope you're having a good week so far. So over the past few months, I've had the opportunity to be on multiple webinars with a variety of different headquarters, Holmes Murphy, insurance provider, and also do a ton of research from the CDC and what they best recommend. So a quick overview of what we're going to go over tonight. Should be pretty thorough on every part of your house. But if you do have questions, I can definitely take those as we go through it. So let's pop those over to Lauren and she will let me know. All of the recommendations do come from either the CDC or Holmes Murphy. So very up to par with what other headquarters are doing as well. Making sure that we're staying in line with what they're doing, what they're recommending, so that our students are best prepared to move back in the fall. So before we jump into moving in, a to-do list of things that should be done prior to move in, creating a plan for what the chapter will do for COVID and what they're going to do in case someone does contract COVID this fall semester or next spring. Review your events calendar. Please, if you do have events or your chapter has events, make sure that you are in line with what the CDC recommends for social distancing. But if you do have events, make sure that you're providing the adequate personal protective equipment, masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, and making sure that your house is very deep cleaned and disinfected prior to move-in. You're updating lease and policies, which we'll cover in a little bit. But most importantly, that you are working with the chapter to update their crisis management plan. Prior to any chapter being able to do a social event, they need to submit an updated crisis management plan to myself so that I can go over it and make sure that they have a COVID section within that crisis management plan. I've talked to Joe. We're going to be treating COVID just like we do any other crisis that the chapter may experience. So we definitely want this going into their plan so that they are prepared for it. They know what they're going to do, and they know who they need to contact should anything happen with a member in their house. All right, so moving in, I think this will be the fun part for everyone. Make sure that we have staggered move-in times, so not everyone moving in at one time. It's my recommendation, the recommendation of others, that you have no more than 2 to 3 members moving in at one time, or 1 to 2 members per floor moving in. This way we have social distancing, we have staggered movement around the house, we're not being congested. If there are rooms where more than one person is living, only allow one person in that room to move in at a time. When people are moving in, making sure that they're wearing masks, they're using hand sanitizer, and that they are trying to stay as distant as possible. When you are moving in, I would recommend having a Google Doc sign up prior to men moving in, so they can sign up for a specific time block, so that we know and you all know when those men are going to be there, when they're moving in, when they're leaving, so you can ensure that there's not too many people coming into the house at one time. With that, moving needs to take more than one day, allowing for multiple days for them to move in so you can separate as much as possible. For having people move in, also limiting the number of people that are helping. So if it's one member, having one or two additional people that are going to help them move in. Again, this allows for social distancing and staggering the amount of people that are in the house, and designating a confirmed entrance and exit so there's clear flow of traffic, people aren't bumping into each other, and that you can just, again, really eliminate the number of people that are going to be in one area. And throughout the day and over the entire move in, that you're cleaning high touch areas, so door handles, hand railings, light switches, that those are being cleaned multiple times so that we're disinfecting and trying to take the germs out of the house. And then in common spaces, having hand sanitizer, disinfectant wipes that the members can use in their rooms as they're moving in, so that we're getting another clean going throughout the house while those men are moving their objects and belongings in, is going to be super beneficial. So common spaces, the national headquarters, the national staff has created 3 different signs for y'all to use that we've sent to your chapter. I'm working with Janet right now to get those sent out. They're the 3 that you see on the side of the screen. The first 2 are for distancing of seating and closing off seating so that we have a 6 feet apart. And the third one is just general prevention to remind our members of what we should be doing, what we should be practicing at all times. So these will be sent out to all chapters, no matter if they have a house or not, that they can use in any communal space that they have. For furniture, making sure that we are blocking off enough furniture so we have the 6 feet apart. That may be required to move some furniture out of rooms, to rearrange furniture. And if you do run out of signs or the signs aren't working for you, you can also use a brightly colored tape to mark off and indicate that that room or that area is closed, that seat is closed. And again, in these areas, having hand sanitizer that anyone can use as they're coming and going through these common spaces. But the big thing here is just making sure that we're adequately closing down seating areas so that there's enough distance between all of them. So for living spaces, for individual rooms, it's gonna be hard to space out the beds, but try to do your best as possible. The next few slides are going to be different room setups to show how you can space out rooms and space out how people are sleeping. If it's possible, only have 1 individual per room, but if it's not, having those men sleep head to toe and spreading out the beds as much as possible is going to be crucial during this fall semester. And then also having a bathroom schedule so that people aren't all showering at the same time, that we're spreading that out so that there isn't high capacity in the bathrooms. And again, clean those high touch points, the shower faucets, the counters, the bathroom, the toilet handles and things like that, so that they're being disinfected multiple times throughout the day. So for single beds, position them 6 feet apart, sleeping head to toe. If that'd be on the same side of their room, sleeping toe to toe, 6 feet apart. For bunk beds, which I believe one of our chapters does have bunk beds, or possibly a couple of them, 6 feet apart, sleeping head to toe. And these next few slides just show that another option for bedrooms is putting in some type of curtain, boxes, something in between the room to act as another barrier while you're sleeping so that you aren't passing germs back and forth, just to be that extra partition. And again, same thing for bunk beds. Big thing here is making sure that you're sleeping head to toe as far as possible, that you go away from each other as you can, but really just try and do your best, and also making sure that you're disinfecting multiple times in your room. So dining spaces, which is going to be different for all chapters dependent on if they have an in-house chef or if they go to the dining residential dining hall, but trying to stagger meal times as much as possible is going to be crucial. Even if it's individuals who are cooking their own meals, trying to stagger those out throughout the day, so that there's not multiple people in the kitchen at the same time, that there's not many men all going in to try to cook, eat at the same time. Also, if possible and if budgets allow, to get to-go containers for men, so that they can take their meals with them to different rooms so they can spread out. Or providing paper plates, things of that nature, so that they're disposable again, so you don't have to eat in the same area. If you do have a house chef, conversations will be happening now with them about eliminating buffet style serving to cut down the number of people handling the same utensils, or if they can offer plated or disposable containers. If that's not a possibility, the chapter should be providing gloves to men as they go through the line, so that they aren't all touching the same utensils and spreading germs from person to person. And cleaning and disinfecting dining rooms and tables after each meal. Anybody who is cleaning these high touch areas should be wearing masks and gloves to protect themselves as much as possible during that cleaning. If you do have an in-house chef, negotiating contractual terms to ensure you're protected in the event food service must be changed due to house closing or member numbers changing. Understand the food service provider's policy regarding the following: PPE, cleaning for the kitchen and dining room, dishwashing, and symptom checks on employees. This is also beneficial for those who are eating on campus or in other areas, that they're understanding what their dining facility is doing so that they can abide by those rules. They know how they're going to be protected, and just being fully aware of what all is going on. Also consider getting sneeze guards or plexiglass for food service if they do have a buffet style, so that, you know, we're cutting down the germs, the transfer of germs. And high touch areas, again, are being cleaned. I don't want to harp on this, but it's very crucial that we are cleaning counters, utensils, cups, cupboards, the refrigerator handles, all those areas that multiple people are going to be touching throughout the day, that we're cleaning those just as much so that we are not transferring germs from person to person, so that we can cut down on that. And it's being disinfected. Cool. So quarantine, this is a big one. If possible, the chapter should establish a quarantine room. Obviously, that's not going to be possible for all chapters. But if a house member does contract COVID and they are a leased member, you cannot kick them out of the house per their lease. It would be a break of contract, breach of contract. I'm so sorry, I'm reading notes. If there is not a housing agreement in place, Holmes Murphy recommends that you create a housing agreement that has a right to remove clause in it, so that if a member does contract COVID, you have a signed agreement with the members that they are to be removed should they contract COVID, and that's a signed agreement in place that supersedes the lease. But again, if they are a lease member, you're not able to kick them out. It's a breach of contract. If they are at will, the lease is at will, you are able to move them out, but it's a 30-day process, which that 2-week quarantine is obviously shorter than that 30 days. So working with the chapters to establish some type of agreement is going to be beneficial for everyone involved. But if a member should contract COVID and you have the ample space, please set aside a quarantine room that has a bathroom with it, or a clearly designated bathroom for those who are in quarantine. With that, having ample cleaning products for that room to be used so that they are cleaning as they go. And it's also very important that each member, when they come back to campus in the fall, they have a plan for what they are going to do should they contract COVID, figuring out where they're going to go, who they're going to stay with, if they need to go home, if that's an option for them, what they're going to do for meals and food during that 2-week period. If they do take medicine, do they have a 2-week supply of their medications on hand? And if not, what they need to do to be able to get that medication should something happen. In conversations with other headquarters, there are some that are electing to have their chapters pay for a hotel room for 2 weeks for that housed member if they do need to quarantine. So that is one option that you have. Obviously, that is only reasonable if you have the funds for it, but making sure that that plan is in place prior to going back to the fall semester, and then communicating that with all stakeholders so everyone involved knows what is going on and knows what they need to do should something happen. If a member does contract COVID who is living in the house, make sure that you're deep cleaning all other areas after that diagnosis. I would also recommend there be 1 or 2 thermometers within the house so that members can continuously check their temperature to make sure that they are healthy and staying healthy, as that's one of the big indicators is a fever. And then also providing ample supply of personal protective equipment for all the members who are there. That's made a big thing in trying to cut it down, is having that PPE on hand. If you do want to read more, I would highly, highly suggest going to the link that is provided in the slide deck, and the slide deck can be sent out after the presentation so you're able to click on those links. But Holmes Murphy provides a very in-depth, thorough plan for how to move back in the fall, and it goes over lease agreements and what a leasee and a leaser their rights are for having people move out, move in during quarantine, what is allowed. That's huge, huge resource that I've been using is the Holmes Murphy website that they have. Definitely would recommend going over that. Cool. So cleaning before move-in, definitely do a deep clean, deep disinfectant of the house. If that is having men come back, alumni volunteers, housing corporation volunteer to do it, or hiring a professional company to come in and clean, is imperative that the house be deep cleaned and disinfected prior to anyone moving back in. Then after that, the house members should create a regular schedule for cleaning and disinfecting the house. So that it's being done on a regular basis, so that we are cutting down on how long we go between cleanings. But with high touch areas, again, we need to be cleaning those every single day, if not more than once a day, and providing the products, cleaning products for those cleanings to be done. It's also crucial that the chapters start collecting and buying those clean products now instead of waiting until a later time, waiting to the fall semester. As a lot of them are in high demand, it's still hard to get disinfectant and things like that. I know I had trouble getting disinfectant wipes this week. So making sure that those members and those chapters are starting to collect those products now so that they have an abundant supply when the fall semester starts. This is going to be crucial if we do have an inevitable second wave. There's not a mass buying again, that we are preemptively getting things now to prepare for that. So virtual learning, a lot of chapters, a lot of universities, have moved towards either virtual learning, a hybrid of in-person or virtual learning. One thing that the chapter can do to help their members is have a strong Wi-Fi signal in the house if that is possible, so that members can continue to do their work. And then some headquarters are recommending that houses try to get a printer and supply of paper and ink for members to do their assignments and things to help them throughout the semester. Just one way to alleviate some of that burden that they may experience during their classes. So live out members and guests. So for live out members, some things to consider, since the house is such a part of a person's experience within the organization. When are live out members allowed to come to the house and for what purpose? We want them to be able to engage and be a part of that atmosphere, but we also need to limit the amount of exposure that they have and how many people we're having in one area. We'll also need to consider, will they be required to wear PPE while they're visiting? if it's they have to wear it in the common areas and then in a brother's room, it's okay to take it off. That is something that the chapter needs to establish and decide prior to fall. And then again, we don't want to take away from that member experience of having that house and being able to go there, but we need to keep them safe and make sure that they're staying healthy during that. And then for guests, having guests required to wear PPE in all common areas. Once they get to someone's room, they can take it off, but that they are also adhering to any of the guidelines that the chapter has set up for their house and making sure that they're following those and aware of those prior to coming over. And that if there are guests coming over, we do have face masks in common areas, we have gloves, and we have hand sanitizer for them to use so that they are able to feel comfortable while being there. During this time, I would not have guests. I would recommend not having guests participate in meal service, just so we can limit the amount of people going through those areas and trying to be as safe as possible. One other big thing with having guests over or live out members even is having a guest list or contact tracing list. It'd be my recommendation to have a sign-in ledger notebook, something at all entrances and exits of the house. And every time a member does come over, they're signing in at what time they came, signing out when they leave, and who they're interacting with. This will cut down a lot when we are trying to figure out who each individual came in contact with. If there is a contract of COVID in that house, we're able to figure out who has been exposed to it. So this is one of the biggest things, is having those ledgers at all exits and entrances so that we can figure out what who people have came in contact with and able to trace that as best as possible. And also with this, boarders that live in the house, people that are not members but are living in the house, making sure they are adhering and following all guidelines that the chapter has set, so that if they have guests over, they're wearing PPE, they're having their guests sign in and out, they're doing all the same things that live-in members are asked to do. So this is an assessment tool that Georgia Tech has created that breaks down all counties across the United States and the risk level of having someone at an event who has COVID and coming in contact with that person. So if a chapter is planning on having some type of event, I would really recommend them going to this website. Again, the slide deck can be sent out so that you have access to it, or you can use the link at the bottom, just type that in. You can go to the specific county that the event will take place in, put in the number of people that will be there, and it'll give you a percentage of the likeliness of someone at that event having COVID and the possibility of you contracting it. The planning tool is real time, so it's consistently changing. So you're able to see it's not information that from 3 weeks ago is same day. So you're able to see what actually the percentage is and go placed on off plan, goodness gracious, plan based off of that. I mean, again, making sure that we are following all of the regulations that your state has already laid out for you in regards to the number of people that can be at an event, and that we're maintaining social distancing. So these are the two resources that I talked about before. Holmes Murphy has an overabundance amount of resources specifically for fraternities and sororities. There's a multitude of different webinars that they've hosted specifically on COVID, how to prepare for the fall, which a lot of this information came from that. That lease agreement and terms are also on there. And there's so many valuable resources specifically for fraternities and sororities. So that's one big resource that should you have questions, I would recommend you going there first. Obviously I can answer them for you, but they have done a really good job of making things abundantly clear and as helpful as possible. And then CSL Management also has some good information in regards to dining and kitchen management that I found really beneficial as well. So that's another good resource to use if you have further questions specifically about kitchen management. But that is all I have for tonight, but I do have obviously time for questions and would love to answer any questions that you may have.
Shelby, there was a couple questions that came up in the chat box.
Yep.
Evan asked about, would there be any legal implications of sending a member known to have COVID to a hotel? Do you want to speak on that? Do you have thoughts on that?
I'm pretty sure I would have to, I don't want to speak wrong. I have to go back to what Dr. Hart stated, but I believe if you're providing them with another place to stay, you are within your legal rights, as you're not kicking them out of the house, but you're providing another option or outlet for them. I can definitely pull that information and send it to you though, but I believe that's also on that Holmes Murphy site. But I can get in contact with Dr. Hart and ask her about that as well. Jean, yes, if the university is owned by the university or college, we need to follow their regulations as well. If it's not owned, it's not owned by the university, I'd also recommend following the regulations, just to not cause any trouble with the university, so that we are adhering to any guidelines that are set before our chapter.
So I went ahead and changed settings for all of you that you're able to unmute yourselves if you want to ask any additional questions as well.
Hey, Shelby.
Evan.
Hi, Mark.
This is Mark West. Hey, hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Based on the question that was just asked, and it doesn't necessarily apply for my chapter, but can we get in trouble for sending someone to a hotel that is known to have COVID?
So there are some universities that are having their members go to hotels. I think Penn State is one that they are, that's what the university's plan is, to have them go to a specific hotel. But I'd have to look into it a little bit more, but from what I understood, since we're not removing them entirely, we're providing another option for them to stay. That is a viable option.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Shelby, can you hear me?
Hello, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Great.
Good. Hey, a question for you. So for Eta Gamma, I was speaking with somebody the other day about how they're requiring for no recruitment materials to be handed out. And I know it's not necessarily in the realm of moving in, but as health and wellness, do you guys have any strategies or anything like that we could utilize instead of handing out like info cards, having them sign a sign-in sheet? Because the university is basically doing away with any of those practices, and we're trying to figure out how to get P&M's info without having those high touch areas in the spread by handing out items.
I know some chapters I've worked on in the past have made Facebook groups, and they're virtually recruiting that way of just trying to invite people to their social media and creating private KDR fall 2020 recruitment pages so that the members are getting information. I'm not entirely sure what Perry may have planned. I'm going to defer to Lauren to see if she knows any better. But my recommendation for that would just to be, I know some chapters in the past have contacted admissions and asked for a list of incoming students, or if there's virtual org fairs, the student activities office should be able to provide a list of people who have signed up for that, and then just reaching out to those people via email or social media, inviting them to their pages, creating different virtual marketing materials that they can push out. And just really trying to pull people to their page, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and engaging with them that way so that they're getting that information out there. But I'm also going to defer to Lauren to see if she has anything else.
Yeah, we could probably completely derail this evening with talks about recruitment and this concept of virtual recruitment. And I will try not to do that. But so I know something else that people have talked about is that most incoming new student classes on Twitter and Facebook, the universities will have hashtags for them, and a lot of fraternities and sororities will sort of follow those hashtags and will for lack of a better term, will stalk the students that are using those hashtags, and get to know them and follow them and introduce themselves to them via social media. And that's another outlet to kind of get to know the students, because that's, I think, the biggest obstacle that people are looking at, right? Is like, if we have to do recruitment virtually, and like I can no longer like meet a student on campus in the same traditional sense that I was before, because I'm not supposed to be like walking up to a dude on campus anymore, because like, stay 6 feet away, dude. Like I can't do that anymore. So how am I supposed to meet him? But I can like introduce myself on social media. So people are getting creative on that, and Perry certainly has a wealth of knowledge that we are going to be getting from him in the next couple of weeks. And there's been a lot of conversations in the industry as far as like what recruitment's going to look like for our students. And I'll be honest, our guys are already getting a little creative on like what they want to do over Zoom for recruitment events, and how they want to combine that with smaller, more one-on-one, if they are going to do stuff in person, what that's going to look like. And you know, they're talking about getting masks to match their recruitment shirts, and I'm like, great, let's make it fashion, like let's do this. So I mean, I think some of them are going to outsmart us as usual, so I'm hopeful on that as well.
I think I've also seen a lot of admissions groups creating, you know, Angela's state class of whatever, and inviting all the new members or all the new students to those pages specifically. So also having men try to just find out those groups, join them, and start interacting with men in those groups or individuals in the groups of, this is who I am, if you want to check out fraternities, XYZ. But really, again, like Lauren said, just being creative in how we're reaching out to them. But I think social media is going to be the big push this year.
Got it. Thank you.
Lauren, am I correct in thinking that we're going to engage Fired Up in helping us work on strategies for remote recruiting? Because I would think that many of those strategies would work if we're in a physical recruiting mode, but still have to do it with the physical distancing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Something I want to make sure I say before I forget about the wealth of information that Shelby has provided this evening. And again, we will make sure that you guys have this PowerPoint as well as the recording. So a lot of what Shelby talked about this evening is targeted towards our alumni corporations who own houses and sort of kind of our official chapter houses. But I would very much like to make sure that we are encouraging all of our members who live in any sort of chapter housing, whether that is official, unofficial, but also just all of our members who live somewhere, whether that is with other members or not, are thinking about, and this is something we'll be doing as a staff, is that we are working with them to make sure that they're thinking about, hey, do y'all have Clorox wipes? Do you own hand sanitizer? Are you thinking about what's going to happen if your roommate contracts coronavirus and needs to quarantine, and like, what does that mean for you? And I think there are, you know, a lot of not ideal scenarios that may come to play there, because I think some people are going to have more options than others as far as what needs to happen in those cases. And so I think we're going to do the best we can with what we have. I think that's the 2020 motto at this point. But I would like to make sure that our students are thinking about that, and that they're thinking about, like, what do I need to do if someone that I live with gets sick, and what does that mean, and how can we plan for that? And the reality is that we know that students are going to have social gatherings anyway, even though, like, if you've watched the news in the last 6 months, you know that social gatherings are probably not a great idea. And so we know that it's going to happen anyway. So, like, let's talk about how to do that safely, and like how to, you know, risk management is something we talk about all the time. And like, now risk management includes hand sanitizer. And so, like, let's make sure we're talking about that. So, like, as much as this is about like some of our house chapters and some of our like official chapter housing, Most of these things also apply to all of our members because all of them live somewhere, and making sure that they all have a plan for how they're going to address that in their own living situation. So I know that some of you are on the call that like you work with chapters that don't have chapter housing, and certainly like have guys that don't live in the official chapter housing, but certainly have guys that still need to plan for how they're gonna do this thing this fall.
With that too, I did create a more or less a parent letter that I'll be working with Janet to send out to all brothers, and believe parents as well, of how to help your student plan for moving back in the fall. And that covers what they're going to do if they do contract COVID, what they're going to do for meals, medication, just so that they have another support that is helping them figure out those things prior to returning in the fall.
First of all, thank you. This whole session has been really informative. With all the outreach and interaction you've been having with the students, what are the actives telling you that they need from their alumni?
I think Lauren has had more interaction with our students, but there was a poll put out, I want to say by Penn State, and a lot of students are worried about returning in the fall, and just want as much support as they can of guidance and someone to go to if they have questions. So I really think this fall they're going to need alumni to help guide them who live in their area, who know the ins and outs of like, this is what the percentage of cases are in our area. Here are some things that you should be considering. But a lot of them are worried to return to campus because they don't know what their university is going to do for classes even right now for some of them, or if there's going to be another shutdown. So I think the biggest role that alumni are going to play this fall semester is being a support for them and making sure that they're doing okay, not only with their physical health, but also with their mental health of how are you coping with what's going on and how can I be a support for you in that aspect as well.
Yeah, I think I would echo that. I think they want people to care about them. I think they want support. I think we talk about lifetime membership, and we talk about, we talk about networking, and like we talk about these perks of membership of like, oh, you'll be able to network with all of these alumni, and like, what does that mean? And I think with this idea of a move to more virtual things, this is a great opportunity to like really see what that looks like. Because suddenly we have this opportunity where people are having chapter meetings over Zoom. And so where you have advisors or you have alumni that maybe couldn't come to a meeting in person because they live 200 miles away and they're not going to drive 200 miles to come to a fraternity meeting at 8 o'clock on a Sunday night because they have lives and jobs and families. But suddenly they're able to pop into a Zoom meeting, and they're able to engage with that chapter and build relationships with those members. And I think we've all experienced a lot of uncertainty, and I think that college students are not immune to that. And I think I don't envy college students right now. Like, I think, Shelby and I were talking about it earlier. We were like, we're glad it's not us right now. And like, I mean, Irving's on the phone right now. Like, sorry, dude, glad it's not us right now. Like, I don't envy college students right now. Like I think it's a really difficult time to navigate all of this. And like, I think if they have adults in their life and they have brothers in their lives that can care about them and show up for them and say like, we got your back. Like, we don't have the answers either. Cause like, let's be honest, none of us know what we're doing here, but like, we care about you and we're here and we want to show up for you and we're going to be here. And KDR has survived well over 100 years now. So like, I feel pretty confident we're going to figure this out too. And so I think, I think that level of encouragement, and I think that support and just being able to show up, and like, whether that's in an advisor role. I think sometimes people think like an advisor role is a big, huge, way too much time commitment, and it doesn't have to be. You could advise one officer in a chapter. So if you know anyone interested in advising an officer in a chapter, you let me know. But I think just showing up, they want to know that people care. I think sometimes I hear from chapters where they're like, we want to have a relationship with our alumni, but we don't know how to talk to them, and we don't know how to ask them to like show up other than to invite them to a homecoming event. Cause like they'll show up to homecoming and they'll like drink at tailgate with us, but like then we don't hear from them. And so I think if they just want to hear from their alumni, they want to hear stories, they want to know what you've done with your life and why that matters to you and why KDR matters. And I think all of that sounds horribly cliche, but it's true.
I would also echo with that they will start to do chapter assessments next year in the fall. So if there's things that they need help with or presentations that they need, if you have a skill set and something and you can provide that for them virtually, 'cause it's going to be very limited what happens on campus. So if you can provide a virtual session for them in some regard, offering that to them so that they know that we have to do this assessment that is always draining and dreadful, but that they have alumni that are willing to step up and help them knock some things off that list, I think would also be beneficial for them.
In our 115 years, we've survived many sort of traumatic events, a couple of world wars, a couple of economic crashes. On the other hand, we've also survived the 1918 flu pandemic, which means we've got practice at this, and we didn't have Zoom then either, so we got this.
Joe did want me to pass along another webinar, if you're very interested in this topic, on Monday, July 27th at 7 p.m., I believe Eastern Standard Time. That's being hosted by FRMT, our insurance provider. And the webinar is Killing COVID-19, Learn from the Global Experts, that will cover topics such as cleaning and disinfection, masks, monitoring, temperatures, how to respond to a positive case in the chapter house, and much more. And I believe he has sent out that link to everyone as well. If not, we can pass it along.
Are there any other questions? Well, I think we'll close. Shelby, thank you so much for all your research and work on this. This was a great presentation, and I also think it will be a good resource for those who weren't able to be here tonight, and because we have recorded it and we will post it out for undergraduates and alumni to still view. I want to remind you that we are planning 2 other Kimball Talks in the short term. The dates are August 19th and September 23rd. We have initial agreement from some alumni to be able to do those events, but it's not quite set in stone yet. So we'll have to advertise those topics when it gets closer. But thank you so much for joining us for this Kimball Talk, and look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.